Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners. Just want to give you a little information about the mission of the Newsa-Cast. Our mission stems from the mission of the Red Smith Banquet, and that mission was to support youth sports in the Fox Valley. Over the 57 years of its existence, we've been honored to give out over $1 million to various youth sports organizations throughout the Fox Valley. The Newsa-Cast is looking to continue that mission and support youth sports as well. You can help us do that by donating to the Newsa-Cast and the Red Smith Sports Banquet.
On today's Newsa-Cast, we dive into the world of high school football. Tosh and I sit down with Appleton North head football coach, 34 years in the business, Rob Salm. Tosh and I take an old look at new, which is presented by Raleigh Winter and Associates. Our throwback takes us to the legendary Bennett basketball family here in Wisconsin. We revisit when Jack Bennett came to the Red Smith Banquet. And Tosh and I finish off the show like we always do with a little It's Forgotten and I'm Never Forgetting. So what do you say, folks? Let's strap in and let's get this show on the road.
But it honestly was the greatest thing that happened. I mean, I had to stand on my own two legs, and I certainly was capable of doing it. But, you know, you don't always know. You always question. There's always that guy on your shoulder saying, are you good enough to do this?
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, welcome to another excellent episode of the Newsa-Cast. We're very excited to bring you some football. Talking with Coach Rob Salm at Appleton North. Fantastic interview, talking a little personal about what it takes, what he does, how he builds culture. It just does a great job. It was a good interview. Yeah,
it really was, Tosh. It was good to catch up with Rob. We've known him a long time, known the Salm family a long time, and you're right. It was good to pick his brain and just kind of understand. He's been around 34 years, Tosh. I almost fell off my chair when he said that. So
yeah, exactly. It's amazing. And, you know, I don't even think we got to everything because there was a lot of stuff we didn't even talk about that you might have to save for another time.
No, definitely. We're finding that out, aren't we, with some of our guests that, you know, we try to keep the interviews somewhere near an hour. And, boy, sometimes it can go way over that. And exactly. I guess that's the sign that we need to have them back again.
Right. Absolutely. So, yeah, you know, we're not that far away. We're coming up to the end of June. And in another month, football season starts, beginning of August.
Yeah, Tosh, as much as I like to hear you say that, I don't want to hear that. It means summer's starting to come to an end. But, yeah, you're right. It's coming quick now. And, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it, Tosh. Just like there's nothing we can do with this rain.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? I mean, we have had some serious amounts of rain here. I don't even know what I heard, but I know some places in Fond du Lac over the weekend had over 8 inches on that Saturday, Friday night, Saturday night. But, you know, I think we had a lot of rain, but I think the biggest rainfall total was 11.72 inches in a 24-hour period.
Wow.
And that's not I don't think anybody had that over the weekend, but that was a record at one time in Wisconsin. 11. I mean, that's tropical storm type rain.
Yeah, that really is.
24 hours. So
that was.
I did hear that someplace in Iowa has had over 20 inches of rain in like the last 4 days. And they have some serious issues in Iowa. So, yeah, we're sounding old on the Newsa-Cast today, talking a lot about weather here and rain.
Yeah,
but
we are. But it's
well, we'll change that. We got to shout out Construct Lacrosse. They were down in obviously this is Construct's first year with Coach Zendraga and Coach Connolly, and they got their first hardware. The high school regional team took to tournaments. And they did a great job, played some really good teams. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, even though there was some rain and some different formats that had to be done all on Sunday. But they pulled it out and got the first hardware for Construct Lacrosse.
It was good to see. I saw the pictures. I think we're going to post some of the Newsa-Cast socials as well. But yeah, congrats to the boys and to Coach. And it's a good first start. Good summer ball. Other than the weather, Tosh, it was a good start to summer ball.
Yeah, as Coach Sandragas likes to say, brick by brick.
Yeah.
So the first brick's laid. So now they head off to Indianapolis this coming weekend, and that'll be a whole different experience. A lot more teams throughout the Midwest. It'll be pretty exciting.
Speaking of bricks, Tosh, you don't want to throw a brick in basketball, but did you see the WIAA turn down the shot clock again in basketball?
Yeah.
And I get the reasons, but I don't know if I get the reasons.
Oh, financially, I think is the biggest reason.
Right. In time, people staffing that. Right. You're right.
Yeah.
You have to pay somebody to run that clock.
Yeah. So financially, I can see, I forgot what I heard the cost would be to upgrade all the gyms to have shot clocks. And it's in the millions of dollars. I mean, it's expensive, but I'll tell you what, I don't go to a lot of high school basketball games, and there's nothing I hate worse than just all of a sudden for like 5 minutes sitting on one side of the court.
Yeah.
It's
no, I know what you mean. It's I don't know what the right answer is. It seems so simple to get shot clocks, but you're right. It costs money, and it's a different game. You know,
right.
High school, they're scoring more for sure, but when they do the four corners and that whole thing, it drives you bonkers.
Well, they've also talked, I think Coach Sandraga said in the podcast, an earlier one, if you want to go check that out, that he really thinks that shot clock will come into lacrosse at some point as well.
Yeah, I'd love to see that as well. That's a different game as well. I tell you what, lacrosse can get the same way. Now, officials do have the ability to call a stall, and you have to keep it in the box. But you're right, I like the shot clock, and I like it in both sports, but I really like it in lacrosse as well. That'd be cool.
Yeah. So what else is new, Joe? Anything exciting on your weekend?
No, just really, Tosh, I'm just trying to stay dry. We're just enjoying summer. You know, there's a lot of great music out there. Digstown is coming this Friday, and
absolutely,
yeah, just trying to get the summer lineup put together. There's a lot of great music. So that's really all I'm doing this summer is catching shows.
Well, that's good.
How about you?
Yeah, you know, I didn't have a lot going on. We had lacrosse. I know there's some things canceled, like Dave Matthews Band was canceled down in Alpine Valley, so they're going to make that up coming up in July, I think.
I don't ever really remember that happening. That's pretty. Yeah.
It was pretty intense storm. And
do you remember? So this just trick. I think it was Jimmy Buffett. Do you remember the year that it rained so hard people were body sliding down the hill, and then it took it was like a snowstorm, because people that have been to Alpine Valley know there is no paved parking lots. You're literally parking in a grass field. Well, yeah. It was one of those times where maybe we did get 11 inches of rain. I don't know. We got a lot of rain that time, and cars were being stuck. It was like 4 or 5 hours to get out of the parking lot because it was such a mucky mess. I think that was Buffett.
It was Buffett, and I was going to say it was one of the better Buffett shows I've ever been to.
Yeah,
because he just loved it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think there's 2 Buffett shows I've been to in the rain. One was the remnants of a hurricane, and we were down near Columbus, Ohio. And that was a great show as well.
Yeah.
And then that one in Alpine with all the rain was spectacular as well. But when you're young, Jimmy. It doesn't matter. Yeah,
no,
exactly. So, well.
Now we have a lot to talk about with Rob. I think we went a little long with him. So people don't want to hear us talk, Tosh, right? Let's get on with the show. It's that time again, once again, for an old look at new. Brought to you by Raleigh Winter and Associates, celebrating 55 years. Did you know that in 1962, an Appleton junior high school teacher with a strong work ethic started a residential realty company? His name, Raleigh Winter. 3 generations later, the Winters still hold true to a strong work ethic and an excellent reputation in the community. Today, Raleigh Winter and Associates remain actively involved in providing retail, office, and industrial users an affordable, well-designed working environment through the creation and or acquisition of quality real estate in the Fox cities and even beyond new. So what do you say? Let's take an old look at new.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, we are set for another old look at new, and we take the little look at history. Joe, what do you got for us this week?
Well, Tosh, I went on a little bit of a field trip, did a little recon work this past Sunday, and I am a big follower, as many of you know, of the Appleton Historical Society, and they had an event where they were at the Appleton's oldest original house. And it actually was moved. It originally was at 720 East John Street back in 1851, but they had since moved this house, and it now sits on 5th Street, not too far from the courthouse. And they had a tour, and it's been lots and lots of people have lived in this house through the years, but they've restored it to maybe like the 1920-ish feel, but really, really cool. I wanted to give them a shout out. I mean, I love the Appleton Historical Society. We know that they're moving building. We talked about they're moving into the old Mongo's building, but yeah, the L.B. Leach House, Tosh, on 5th Street, and here's a long history. I don't need to get into it all, but that is Appleton's oldest house. I know the other day, a couple of episodes, I mentioned the first structure, which was that log cabin over kind of where Lutz Park maybe is now. But this is actually an original house. So the first one, 1851, Tosh.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Tosh? What are you going to take a look at?
Well, we're going to go to June 27th, 1837. And on this podcast, we're kind of in a new era of how people get their information. But back in 1837, we had a paper called the Milwaukee Sentinel that was founded by Solomon Juneau. Yeah. And Solomon Juneau also happened to become Milwaukee's first mayor as well. But he founded the Milwaukee Sentinel June 27th, 1837.
I love that, Tosh. My growing up years, we talked to Rob today, and we're about the same age. But I grew up in the morning reading the newspaper, and the Journal Sentinel was it would have been I forgot what the morning was, either the Sentinel or the Journal. One of the two was the morning.
They switched. That's right.
Then they merged at some point. Yep. But I mean, that's fantastic. Some of the old writers, Bud Lee was a great columnist, and absolutely, that was
it's a different day and different era.
It is.
Sure.
It 100% is. I struggle with that because we're newspaper guys. We grew up with that, but it's just not the way the world works anymore.
It is not at all.
Well, Tosh, I like that. It was a good old look at new, and I got to give a shout out to Keith. He's one of our longtime listeners. He texted me the other day and said, "I finally figured out why you call it an old look at new." So maybe someday we'll reveal the secret, Tosh. But
there you go. That
was an old look at new, and it was presented by Raleigh Winter and Associates. So thank you, Dub, and thank you, folks.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, you are about to hear an interview with Coach Rob Salm. 34 years of coaching experience. He's been out at Appleton North for a long time and has a very successful program. And we're going to hear some of the ins and outs about what he does, how he builds culture, and just a little bit about his experience and how he came into being a head coach at the high school level. So a lot of great insight. We hope you enjoy the interview.
Yeah, actually, I just finished my 34th year of coaching high school football, which is crazy.
Holy cow. No wonder I have so much gray hair.
I know, it's coming in fast and furious recently, I can tell you that. I mean, it's definitely different than when we were kids, when we were younger. I still remember my mom, she had a notebook and she recorded every single winning pitcher for the Green Bay Packers, for the Milwaukee Brewers, who had home runs, starting pitcher, losing pitcher, saves. And she had this notebook. Every single morning we get the post crescent, I'd be looking at the box score. Now it's like instantaneous. I mean, as soon as something happens in a game, boom, it's up on one of your social media platforms. Then all your buddies are texting each other, right, and talking about just what they saw and what happened.
Absolutely.
Completely different than what it was back when we were kids.
The only constant was Euchre was calling the games.
Right. No kid. He's only, 90 years old these days?
90, yeah.
He's been a part of our whole entire life. We've never lived a day without him calling a baseball game.
Yeah, no, it's still, and I still will turn on the radio simply just to listen to Bob Uecker's voice. And, farm boy growing up on the farm, we had the Brewers on in the barn all the time. Sounds crazy, but listening to him, and the Brewers actually were pretty decent, during that time. So it was enjoyable. The Packers weren't quite as good at that time. So that was a big part. One reason I got into coaching, honestly, sports was everything.
Yeah.
It was Badgers, Bucks, Brewers, and Packers. That was really our whole childhood.
Was that just your dad just having a pure love of sports and just sharing it with his family? Is that really where you guys got your sports?
No. Truthfully, it was my mom.
Whoa, nice. Awesome.
My mom. Yeah, and my dad liked sports.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like he wasn't a sports fan, but more casual. My mom, diehard. It's actually still tough to watch games with her because she gets so upset about officiating and calls.
Sure. Damn officials.
I know. But no, my mom, she was from Little Chute, and both of her brothers, at that time, the girls didn't really play sports, but both of her brothers were really good athletes for St. John's and Little Chute. And they just had a passion in their family. My grandpa was a huge Wisconsin sports fan. So that's really where it started. That'd be true and truthful. Obviously, you guys were at school with my brother Kurt. Mm-hmm. Brother Kurt was a diehard sports fan, even more so than I was. But being a year younger, I just kind of followed along with all of his love and joy of sports.
Yeah.
So he really got me interested, probably more. Between my mother and him, that was really where my love of sports started.
I have a great memory. It was just Kurt and I at the old Darboy Fried Chicken, which is now, I think, Mateo's. And him and I sat out in the parking lot. And I remember it was like a day like today, a beautiful summer day. And we just talked. I don't even know what we talked about, but it was Brewer baseball for an hour. Just whatever you talk about. And I still remember that. And of course, Darboy Fried Chicken was, legend, right? Just epic in our day.
It seems like almost everybody worked there at some point.
Right.
I don't know. And that was, Kurt in sports, he would buy the Baseball America periodicals. What was the other one that they had that came out would have all of the minor league stats and things?
Yeah. Well, USA Today had a big thing, Baseball America. There was one other one too that we're missing.
I can't remember what that was.
We need a lifeline. Paul Lecker, we could call him.
Yeah, and that's obviously Kurt and Paul Lecker were roommates in college.
Right.
You could just listen to those guys talk sports because they knew everything about sports and just had a passion for it. And I was definitely more novice in that sense, but it is Wisconsin. There's not a whole lot else to do besides love sports in a lot of ways. So that kind of geared my early upbringing on just the absolute love of, and I didn't know I was going to be a coach. My path has definitely taken a strange twist from being a farm boy who, we were only allowed to play one sport.
Right.
And when I actually played basketball and football, I was probably better at basketball when I was in middle school. But then it was weird. I had to pay my brothers to do the chores or else come home after practice and do the chores.
Sure.
And that didn't last that long. And so I gave up on that. And then I don't know if you guys know that, but Kurt and I went to St. John's and Little Chute until we were in 8th grade. And then we went to Einstein, which was just 9th grade at that time. So
that's when we would have hooked up with Kurt.
Yeah. And we didn't know a soul. That was a tough deal, honestly, being, our whole lives were in going to St. John's, a Little Chute, having all your friends and not even moving. And we lived in the same house. Yeah. And we had to start over at Einstein. And it took a little adjustment. Cause I actually didn't play any sports my freshman year. Cause I didn't know anybody. And, a lot of times it's your friends, that really gets you involved. And I was a pretty nice athlete, but I didn't have a lot of confidence because I didn't know anybody. And so I didn't even play. They tried to get me to come out my sophomore year for football, and going to West was new. And I just wasn't that confident of a kid, to be truthful about it. I didn't really believe in myself. And so I didn't play. And the guys just kept encouraging me to go out when I was a junior. And Paul Lingen bumped into me at some point. I don't even know when it was, and said, "Hey, you look like you'd be a good football player." And I was kind of like, Paul, you can talk to me? I
Yeah.
mean, this means everything. I mean, maybe it actually could be good. And then I came out, and it kind of just, that set me on the course of, really, for me, it really changed my life simply because it gave me confidence. I ended up being pretty good at it. And I was going to be an electrician. We were a trade family, so I never really thought about going to college. Was always a decent student. That was never a real issue, but never really wanted to necessarily go on to school. Next thing you know, you have a little success, and people at the next level are interested in you actually playing there. The next thing I know, I'm thinking about going to college, and
Right.
that's kind of where it started. And
when you first started, because I remember you playing in high school, and I think the one thing I still remember is just your aggressiveness, and you seem to be really smart.
Yeah.
But like you flew to the ball really well, I thought. Where did that come from? Was that just being a farm kid? It was just in you, and that's the way it came out of you, or?
It's interesting. Obviously I have 5 brothers. I'm the only one that played defense. So I do think I'm wired a little bit differently, to be honest with you. If you ever saw me play basketball, it does have a little bit of version of, kind of a version of football in there.
Sure.
So I just like the physicality, always did. But this, I'll be honest with you, I still think about this thing. I was encouraged because I probably was one of the fastest guys on the team. I mean, I could motor pretty good. I was extremely physical because I liked that part of the game, but I really didn't know that much about football. I really didn't. I mean, it's just what I watched basically with the Badgers and the Packers. My dad didn't know anything at all.
Right.
Kurt knew every stat there was, but as far as the ins and outs at that time, didn't really know much about the game of football. So I was learning everything on the run, and I probably should have been a running back. I really probably should have been. But if you guys remember our junior year, I think it was Doug Berg and Corey Krieger. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Popular kids, pretty good athletes. I didn't want to be this first guy, football player going out and trying to take their jobs. I mean, heck no, I'm staying away from that as much as I can.
Right.
So this is a true story. I actually went to flanker. Along with playing a linebacker on defense. And Pete Peterson was our quarterback, and Pete had a cannon for an arm, a great arm. And I shouldn't say a great arm. He had a very strong arm.
Right.
And his timing, if you remember, it was
a very strong arm.
Right.
Yeah.
It was kind of going all over the place. Good athlete. Would have been good in the dual threat, offenses they see today. But so I run, and I'm like trying to do everything exactly like coaches are telling me. So I'm supposed to do a 12-yard hook in. So I go down 12 yards, plant my foot. And as I'm turning around, the ball just nails me right in the side of the head. And I never even saw the ball. It goes up in the air. So I see it get intercepted. I don't remember who intercepted it, but I just went and hit him as hard as I possibly could and kind of blew him up. I never spent another second on offense in my career.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I often wonder if I would have tried to play running back, where that would have went. Maybe I wouldn't have played defense because, you got to be physical to play running back too. But, that speaks to like your confidence, your experience, your just knowledge. I just didn't have a ton of that. Defense was just more natural for me from that sense. So I could go over there and just start around hitting people. And, we went to a 53 defense, and Coach Schengen said, "Hey, we're going to put a 53 defense. We want to get you on the field a little bit more." And I was like, I had no idea what a 53 defense was.
Right.
It was so it's 5 linebackers are basically going to be on the field. I obviously know that now, but at that time I'm like, oh, awesome. I can't wait. I'll do it. I will make you proud. And then that speaks to kind of my junior year of really feeling things out. And, obviously I did a lot of special teams because they just told me to run fast and go hit people. And by the end of the year, I was kind of figuring out and was getting on the field quite a bit more going into my senior year. But yeah, that's my story. So I share that a lot with kids maybe that aren't real confident, and I feel like football would be good for them. My own story,
right.
How I really didn't know if I was going to be a good football player. Some people encouraged me. I gave it a try, worked really hard, and things really worked out for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's awesome. And it's a different time frame for everybody. It doesn't have to happen early, late, whenever. Heck, it can happen late in life. It's happening to me sometimes.
Right.
Do you get a lot of kids who might not play at that middle school level anymore and still come out at high school? And, They can be very successful. I know, former coach Schwanke always said that I can take anybody and make them into a football player. They don't have to play in middle school. Do you have that kind of feeling as well?
Yeah, he's right. And, football is probably the sport that's left, maybe track and field, that you can be a really good athlete and just go out there and have some success without any real knowledge of the game. Because you can specialize in a position and just learn that skill for that position and still have some success. What we're seeing, it's, I don't like the state of our youth athletics right now. The kids that we just lost another good receiver who decided that they're going to go full-time baseball again. And, it's getting to be more and more where the club coaches are talking to some of the younger kids and just saying like, hey, if you and your family commit to this and pay this much money and do these travel teams, and you're going to be able to do this. And, you had Nick on. One of the reasons we started that Chargers for Appleton, not just for North. We really wanted to try to get our youth kids to play some football at a younger age that was, connected to the high school and get excited about it, because we were losing a lot of kids that were specializing, probably would have been good football players, but just to, have them try other sports and things. And a lot of times we'll get kids that come in and they think they're the greatest basketball or baseball player, and they're nice players. And all of a sudden they'll see, but you can kind of see that that's probably not going to be their sport. Those 5'7" point guards that are coming in and can handle the ball pretty good. But, it's at some point it's probably going to run out for them a little bit, at least to have the success that they hope to and want to. So you just try to stick with them. A lot of times we'll have Trent Mullins, a kid who played for us a couple of years. He was all basketball, but always played football, loved football too. By the time he was a senior, football was a sport. Still, great point guard for our high school team, did a great job for him. Great defensive player, just his offensive skill never developed. And he got a lot of playing time as a true freshman at UW Lacrosse this year at corner. We're starting to see that a little bit more, where football is the sport that, first of all, can be done in-house. Like sometimes I get some grief from some of the coaches because we do so much at the high school with our kids, but there isn't really alternatives, for getting ready for football outside of football. There's some 7-on-7 leagues and things, but those are really limited as far as what you can really do with those. And those are maybe a couple skill position guys. And they do have some workout centers. Kids can go get some extra work, but we try to do it all in house and really have it's one of I think it may be the remaining sport that's left that really has the true high school camaraderie, has the relationships. And people are like, they'll say sometimes, hey, how come they always get so many kids to the football games and stuff? Well, it's because those kids are like still embedded in the school. They're still, walking around. They do the workouts at school. The strength coaches know them. The other coaches know them. There's a lot of kids too in football. It's not, it's normally a bigger roster. So there's just still that connection. Like Gus Maves is a good friend of mine, our baseball coach at North, and does a really good job. And they had lost the first round of the playoffs. They lost to West, actually, and West had a really good pitcher this year. So they got them in the first round of the playoffs, and you know how that goes with baseball. And the kids at the end were disappointed and sad. They had a really nice season this year, lost the first round of the playoffs. But a lot of them were kind of like, well, now I can go play with my club team this weekend and still make these games. So it's like you think about when Appleton West baseball was back in our day. I mean, those kids, they died to play Appleton West baseball. I mean, they do some other stuff, maybe Legion and things in the off season, but it was Appleton West baseball. And it's just different now. I mean, it's just the way things have changed. The club sports have taken over a big part of, the outside aspect of the sports development, and not all of it is always where I'd like it to be. I mean, you guys probably know what we make as high school coaches, all right? You're not going to get a new boat or something off of the money you make from doing the 25 cents an hour or something like that. They say it is. And so when I speak to a student, an athlete, I'm going to be as honest as I can be. I mean, I want to encourage them to keep working at it and keep doing it. But at the same time, you got to be honest, this is what you can do. But really, it's the tools which you're going to develop that's going to help you be successful. You're probably not going to play in the NFL. Right. But, the fact that you're going to be able to work hard and get through adversity, you can do something over a long period of time and then suddenly get the results 4 or 5 years down the road because of the work that you put in. That's called real life. All right. It's not this instantaneous stuff that's out there these days where you just say, hey, I want to do this and have it happen tomorrow. Well, where does that really happen? But those coaches that are sometimes giving information, feedback to kids, it's not unbiased. I mean, their paychecks sometimes depend on that. It doesn't mean like they're bad guys. There's probably some really good dudes out there, but at the same time, it's hard to be as honest with a young man or a family when your paycheck depends on the information that you're giving them. So I just feel like it's not that clean system that we had where people were just being honest because they were in it for the right reasons. And that's changed.
It really has. That's well stated, and it's something I've grappled with as a parent, and I have friends that are have kids at various levels and all of this, and it's changed so much. You're right, because it's not at all like it was when we grew up. That structure is completely different, and I guess things do change. I understand that, but boy, from a coaching standpoint, to be able to navigate that, that's got to be one of the biggest challenges you have. Is just that.
Yeah. Well, like the boy that was talking to him, he's a really great kid. And I'll just use that example. And this has probably happened every year where you got a kid that, is making that decision. And first of all, if you ever talk to a college recruiter, even if their focus is baseball, basketball, another sport, whatever it is, they want them to play football. I mean, football is a tough sport. It's going to help them in that competitive development to be in those different environments. That aspect, it's to just play baseball 12 months a year. I mean, you're missing so much of it. And now if you talk to our trainers, there's the physical part of it where you have the physical breakdown because that same motion, the girls that are pitching year round, I mean, all of a sudden they got shoulder problems and hip problems and things. It's not healthy for them. But yet they still say that they should be doing this. I mean, if you talk to the college coaches, I still remember Clark Egan, if you remember him, he was a really good player for North in baseball. Mm-hmm. And he followed Matt Erickson, to Arkansas. And so he got there and he came in with 7 other recruits. And Clark happened to be a quarterback for us. And the other 7 recruits were all high school quarterbacks on their football teams. And the Arkansas coach is like, that's who I recruit. I want these guys that have, especially being high school quarterbacks, you're in the toughest position you can be in on the field for football. Right. So if you can navigate that and have success doing that, you know what, the baseball field is probably a place where you're going to also have some success at. So again, that to me speaks to why I feel like the multi-sport guy is so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You speak, it's been interesting. Tosh and I, the people that we've interviewed, whether they've been Olympians or whoever, every single one of them, Tosh, right, have been multi-sport athletes. There hasn't been one just focused solely on whatever sport, whether it's rowing, hockey, whatever. They've all played multi-sports. And then you saying that, I mean, I think you're right, and I can't figure it out, right? We didn't grow up this way, but yet it's our generation that's making these decisions for the kids that you're only going to play one sport. I don't get what happened. Where's the disconnect there?
Well, I know what happened. It's money got involved. I mean,
exactly.
That's really where it's at. Yeah. And I mean, everybody wants their best for their kids, right? I mean, you want your kids to have the best opportunities, and some parents just get lost in it. It's like, well, if I keep paying this out, eventually my kid's going to be able to do these great things. And it's just, a lot of times it's not there. Just that realism in there. And especially when you have somebody that's telling you information that really isn't truthful and really isn't honest, but feeds into your desire for your children to, have great opportunities and have success. I literally have we had 2 brothers that were at our school, and they're really nice football players. They got to both go play on it at Whitewater, actually. And the parents actually paid for them to play club baseball all the way through. And they were big lineman type. All right. So you kind of know they probably have, a limited, the guy that's with Toronto right now used to play for the Brewers. There's only so many of those guys that actually have that body type, right, that are going to play at the next level.
Right.
And I bet you between the 2, I guarantee it, that family probably put in over $100,000. I mean, could have easily paid for their college. Yeah. And it was all about getting this college scholarship and things. But people were telling them that, well, they're big, strong kids. They can, if they connect on one, they can do this, whatever. And they kind of fell into the trap. And having conversations with them now, they regret the decisions that they make. But they were kind of blinded by it and drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak. And that's the result they went.
When we were growing up, you played Pop Warner. You played for your middle school team. Maybe you played basketball. you maybe ran track until baseball started, and when you're in high school, you played Legion ball, and those are the things. That was all there was for us.
Yeah.
But like you said, money got involved, and now we have, clubs where you're paying $3,000-$4,000 a summer,
right?
And that doesn't include travel.
Yes, the tip of the iceberg. And I know some of those families, it's kind of a family thing, and they're doing it, so there's not like all bad in that stuff. But at the same time, if you're doing it with the sole goal of your kid to get a college scholarship, then you got to take a step back, because, I mean, even like you look at the baseball and the softball, I mean, they don't give full scholarships away. I mean, the best of the best don't get full scholarships. Football is probably the one that still can get some full scholarships for whatever reason. I know it's a moneymaker, but if you look at the next level, that's all changing as well.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the athletes that you've had in the 34 years and the ones that have gone on to play college. How many of them play through the whole entire college career? Do some of them last a year or two and drop off? I mean, what do you have a feel for that? How long do these kids actually keep playing through college?
Yeah, you're going to see some of the same character traits from all of them. First of all, there's just a general love for athletics, love playing sports, love to compete, never get too caught up in like the moment. Nothing's too big for them. You can see it. I mean, my first year of coaching high school football, the quarterback on the JVs for West happened to be Matt Erickson. So right from the start, I had a pretty good example of kind of what it looks like, because Matt really was that guy. I mean, played 3 sports. He always played everything at the highest level, but was never cocky, was never arrogant, was doing it all for the right reasons. Obviously had a good mentor, at home to really kind of guide him. Right. And then he obviously made it all the way to, drink a cup of coffee in the big leagues. So, and now every time you turn on the Brewer game, he's sitting in the dugout,
I know. Guy. It's so awesome. It's so cool to see that, isn't it? That story, you feel connected to him.
Absolutely. I was just talking to, we have a boy, Wes King, who is the starting guard for Wyoming out in the Cowboys right now. And he was all conference last year as a redshirt freshman. And so we talk now and again, and we're just talking about it. And I said, how's it going? He goes, I just love it. I just love it. There was no like, oh God, these workouts are so hard, because they're brutal there. Yeah. They work those guys out. It's nonstop. And he's like, I love every second of it, because I just finished a workout. I'm going in for some treatment now. Going to get some dry needling. And I'm like, well, you enjoy all that stuff? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, after the dry needling, it feels so good. I'm like, all right, he's wired a little bit differently. Right. But that's kind of how they work. I mean, you got to be just built a little bit differently.
So he's at Wyoming. Is he a starting guard?
Yeah, he started last year as a redshirt freshman. Nice. His first start ever, first game was against Texas. It was a nationally televised game. So he held his own.
What are his numbers up? How big is he now? What's he built?
On his roster, they got him 6'5", 313, I think, right now. Yeah. He was on that really good team. Well, I think you might have remembered, Joe. His junior year, he didn't play offensive line. He was just a defensive lineman. Then his senior year, he played. And that team that probably should have been a state champion, for us at North. He was started at tackle, and he was an absolute natural. I remember him at Green Bay Preble. He's literally like a fun kid and a nice kid. Like, you can joke around with him. You talk to him on the phone, and it's like, okay, 45 minutes just went by. It's a blink, because he's just such a great kid. Right. And we were at Preble, and he's blocking a guy, and he blocks him all the way off the field into the jumping pit over the visitor sidelines. So the kid's in the sand pit. And the official goes, hey, you got to back off on those guys a little bit. And he goes, Coach, he goes, can they tell me to back off like that? And I'm like, they really should, but probably try not to put a guy into the sand pit on the sidelines. So they're a little bit different, but it's the character traits. He had one thing that I appreciate about him, and it's not always the case. Like, his home life wasn't the best. He had to work at it. He didn't take anything for granted. Nothing was easy for him. We actually had a family that took him in his senior year, and he stayed there, and is still pretty close contact. He doesn't really even contact his folks too much anymore. So I think that part of it, where he had to work at things in his life. Like things weren't given to him easily. I think he appreciates the opportunities that he has, and he's willing to work at it more. And I'm not saying that our kids are entitled and lazy, because, just because they get things from their parents doesn't necessarily mean they're bad kids.
Right.
But let's face it, at the same time, if you've had a tough upbringing and you have to work for everything that you've had, and you've had to, struggle and grind a little bit, I think that makes you appreciate things a little bit more and make you fight a little bit harder for things.
I 100% agree with you. That's cool. I remember that name, and I had forgotten that he went on to play. I'm going to watch him this year, definitely. Do you think he has a shot at being drafted in the NFL? Is he projecting that?
Well, we had that conversation, and I think that he could go after this year, the next year, but he's definitely has a good chance to get drafted.
Yeah.
But this is what he says. He goes, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be the guy that's talking about it. I want to go out and earn it. And if I get there, but I don't want to. But he goes, but right now, the way they're telling me things are looking pretty good, like I'll have that opportunity. And I mean, he's the prototypical athletic, strong. I mean, he was a wrestler.
Right.
I did rugby when he was younger too. And so he's that prototypical offensive lineman. I mean, he's 313 and he's got no fat on his body. I mean, he looks like that NFL guy.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to put that on him. I want him to enjoy every second he's in college, have a great time. I think they play Arizona State the first game this year. I want to try to get out for a game to watch them play at one of those. But it's the only thing about Wyoming is all of their games are west.
Yeah.
And with our high school season going on, it's hard to set up a time because you have to try to get the flights when you're playing Friday night to get out and to get to a game. So I'm like, dude, can't you schedule something over closer to the east side of the country so I can just get there and have a chance to watch you play? But that's a nice little benefit of coaching. And when you get with these situations happen where you got a kid that's playing at a higher level and kind of watch them and see them develop. I'm
sorry. Do you stay in contact with a lot of your former players?
Pretty much everyone, I would say, to some level, some more than others.
Yeah.
Like when I try to send them all messages, especially when they start their first training camp or their 2 days, whatever you call them, at the next level. And some will be homesick and will struggle a little bit. Others are really well adjusted and they're ready to go. And try to send them a quick message before they had a game out at Texas. And funniest thing about, not funny, but Wes actually last year in the bowl game, I can't remember who they were playing against, he ended up getting a concussion. So he got removed from the game like in the second quarter. And all of a sudden I'm getting a text. He's in the, and he's all upset because he got pulled from the game because he didn't really think he was concussed bad enough where he had to go the game. I'm like, well, if you're concussed, you're concussed. If they're telling you have to come out west, so the game is going on, and he was texting me, which I thought was pretty cool. That if you're the person that he wants it, when he's thinking about when he's in that situation, he had a good relationship and it maybe made an impact to help him get to where he's at, which is pretty cool.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listener, help us grow by subscribing wherever you get your pods or sharing the Newsa-Cast. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and bring greater awareness for youth sports organizations in Northeast Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays Grant, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.
Hey, Rob, you earlier talked about camaraderie in football, and obviously you came in as a junior and playing at West, and you probably saw some camaraderie. What do you do to build that on your team? Because I know North has a great culture. The football program is always strong, and you have to continue to build that. What do you do as a coach to get these guys to buy in to the beliefs that you have?
Yeah. It's a bit of a challenge these days, and sometimes it's a little bit easier because of the individuals you have on your team. Some are natural at it, and they just bring guys or bring kids together. A couple years ago, we had a Matthew Sheckelman who was the quarterback on that team, and Matthew was the most unassuming, just quiet, just, the ideal leader. Everybody on the team loved him, and he was a stud, right? I mean, he could go and walk through the hallways. Everybody knows who he is, but he never acted that way. So it's just this, everybody wanted to do well to support Matthew. So that's just an example. Sometimes you don't have those strong leaders and that group of kids. So then you got to manufacture a little bit more. Like this year, we're really doing a lot of team building stuff. I got Lucas Jade. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lucas. Like, we do our midweek mindset. So he'll be coming in tomorrow to do another activity with the boys. Because our coaches we spend a lot of time with them, and sometimes it's like living by a train. Eventually, you just don't hear that train anymore. So, Lucas is working with some professional teams at the highest level. So when he comes in, there's kind of an automatic respect, and he gives some good guidance about things that maybe we're working with. So I try to utilize as many of the resources that are out there, because there is so much in that today about different activities and things that we do. But one of the things is, like, when I learned this, I was a strength coach actually when Mike Weinberg. I was a coach there, and then Paul Engen took over. Yep. And he let me run, the whole strength stuff. And I used to do this where you'd open up the weight room from 8 o'clock in the morning till noon and say, okay, these are the days it's open. Come in. I got your workout for you. And these kids would just kind of come in, at what it was ever comfortable for them or easy for their schedule. And so some kids, you get a half dozen kids that would really benefit from it, but yet you didn't see the culture of your team developing. They weren't grinding together. They weren't working together. And so that's one of the biggest ways you can do it, is to have them all in at the same time. So I learned that kind of in a short hurry, even before I became the head coach. This is when our group's going to lift. All right. So this is the time you need to be in there. And what's nice about it, it's going to basically be 8 to 10 hours a week. But you need to be there for those 8 to 10 hour weeks, because there's not other options out there. And like the first week, we had 94% attendance. We had kids that were all there because it's not so much that they want to let me down. They don't want to let their teammates down. So that's how you start to build that culture, because they're grinding together. They're sweating together. And we had a really tough workout today. And you could just see the guys starting to pick each other up. They're starting to encourage each other and talk to each other. So that a lot of that chemistry, a lot of development, that culture gets done in the summer before. And it's a process. It's not like, hey, today we got it and we're good. I mean, it's something that just continues to develop. Something that I actually did with when Coach Hagan was we actually did they started calling it Camp Salm. That's not what I wanted to be about me, but it's at my dad's place up in Shawnee Lake. And we actually would do this in the summer for one of our contact days. We'd have a practice, and then we would all head up, and like parents would drive them up there. They'd have tents and stuff. We'd set them up around the campus that my dad's got, a little, not campus, but the cottage area. And we would have a bunch of activities we did, and that was a good way to bring the kids together. But the next day we'd have a plan, like stuff and, activities to do and do some football stuff. Well, the kids were useless the next day because nobody slept. I mean, they were, which is normal, which they should do, but they did grow as a team. But at the same time, we didn't get as much football stuff done. And we saw this shift, like I said, about all these other club teams. And so if you're doing it like the second or the third week in July, which was normally our contact days, we couldn't have the whole team there because some were in basketball, some were in baseball, lacrosse, whatever it was. We didn't have everybody there. And it's hard to really build your team if you have 3/4 of the team there. So we actually moved that to the first week of practice. We do this, and we just go up. We have practice in the morning at school. We load up the bus. We go up there, and then we get home about 8 o'clock. And that whole time that we're up there, we're just doing team building activities. We mix the teams up, so they got to work with all their teammates. Now you got everybody there. So that's kind of the final step to really get us where we need to be culture-wise. They set goals for themselves for the year. You get your leaders up front, and they have to talk and get out of their comfort zone a little bit to kind of set the plan for the season. So kind of those little things we do run, and this is new. We start after the season. Some kids get voted. We do a leadership committee. So kids get voted in, and then we do leadership lessons. Paul Engen actually is part of our leadership council. So he comes in. Matt Heckel's another really good one for us. And then we bring guys in. We've had a lot of different speakers. We had former players that will come in. Brian Morgan's he's a retired. His son James Morgan played for Ashwaubenon. They got drafted by the Jets a few years ago, and they moved. So he's now working as our quarterbacks coach. But he's got a lot of really good leadership stuff. So he comes from a different perspective because he's from the business side. So it's not football. It's about life stuff. It's about becoming a leader, in all facets of your life and how to do that. So he does a really nice job teaching lessons lessons, but then they come up with a game plan, and we bring in all the juniors and they go through their game plan of what they set for the season. And we bring in all the sophomores, and then we bring in all the freshmen. So they all get a chance to talk to their teammates and kind of give them a plan and tell them what's going on. And honestly, sometimes they're amazing at it. Sometimes there's still some coaching that needs to get done. I mean, kids are all different. So those are the different things that we try to do to start building that culture, start building that, because it's going to be different every year. And it doesn't have, like we tell them, it doesn't have to look the same as it did the year before, as long as we have the same goals, our culture is the same environment. You know, it can be done a little bit differently, but as long as the core meaningful stuff that has to happen for our team to be successful are still the same, we're in a good spot.
It always amazes me how quick the football season goes, but that's structured life for that, you know, whatever number of weeks it is. Is that something you just live for? I mean, that is, you're living your life a different way in season, aren't you? I mean, it's, I guess, what does your schedule look like during the year, and especially in season?
My schedule, well, first of all, it literally has 365 days. And I'm not, you know, what football has that, I mean, a third of our kids are kids that, you know, have some struggles in school. You know, they're maybe not always making the healthiest decisions. So there's a lot of support that goes on with those kids that we really need to, you know, get them in line, give them some structure, give them some support, mentor, whatever it is. So that's really going on basically year round. I mean, I bet you, I remember during the COVID year, I had 16 different kids I texted every single morning just to see how they're doing, you know, because of like a mental, you know, some depression and a mental illness, a lot of stuff going on at COVID that time. You know, that's the worst as it was. But just to give you an example about like what it takes to support some of the kids to help them get through so they can start standing on their own 2 feet and start getting that confidence. You know, I talked about that. Confidence is such a big deal for kids. But for me, like once the season goes in the summer, I also teach an e-school health class in the summer. So that keeps me busy as well. But we start at 6 a.m, at least getting organized, and kids come in at like 6:50. So we're going by 7 o'clock in the different groups. I think the last one, the 9th grade boys come in. There's some of the girls groups are in there too. I think they're done at like 10:30 is the last group that we'll have in there. And we only do that Monday through Thursday. Just because I feel like Friday needs to be off, and we were having so many kids that were missing because of some of the other sports commitments anyway. So we try not to put them in a tough spot. We want to get as much done during those 4 days. And honestly, for a guy who's been doing this for a long time, I think keeping your coaching staff fresh, feeling like they can go places for a long weekend, especially if they're teachers, you know, I don't want to eat their entire summer up because they can get burned out real fast. So you can leave, you know, you can leave Thursday late morning and not have to come back until the workout on Monday. That's a nice long weekend, not only for the families, but also the coaches. But, you know, like there's, Paul Engenhauer says this. He said, I don't know if I could have survived being a head coach, what you have to do now compared to what he had to do when he first started coaching. And he had to do more, you know, as it went along. But he's like, this is just such a different world, you know, I got social media guys. I mean, we make a media guide for our families. We have another group that does that. You know, like I do my own fundraising. So we make our own fundraising books. So we got those organized. That's just apparel. Right now, I'm in a transition because a lot of my coaching staff is older than me, which says a lot. I'm not a young dude. So I'm trying to, you know, bring some of these young guys in that have some talent, but they need some experience, and have some of our, you know, really experienced, great coaches we have to really start mentoring them. And so right now I have like 22 coaches. So like keeping them all organized, making sure they understand what their roles are, keep them developing. You know, obviously the older class or coaches don't have to do that as much, but also making sure that they understand where they fit into this big puzzle, because there's not, you know, just, it used to be like, I mean, when we played, it was, what do we have, like 5 coaches?
5 coaches, yeah.
At best.
I mean, that was for the all JV and varsity staff. Now I have 5 coaches. I have 6 coaches just on the JV staff.
Yeah.
Actually, I have more than that, because Nick's actually came back, and he's going to, because Brock's going to be playing some ball, so he can't do varsity. He still wants to coach, so he's helping out in the JVs and helping some of those young guys get along. But just that, I mean, I bet you I've had a dozen coaches meetings with different organization of things. Last week ago, Tuesday, I met with all of our Charger coaches, and we'll go through the defense and try to keep them up to speed. it's literally like every night there's something that's really going on, just in preparation for the season and stuff. Now, I love it. I'm not going to sit there and complain about it.
Right.
I mean, I hate not having something to do, but there are times when it's like you get, I mean, honestly, a tough loss, or you're like the kid that comes and tells you, say, hey, coach, I'm going to focus on baseball this year. They don't understand that does sting. I mean, you have an invested relationship with these young men, and you take great pride in them developing and helping them become the best version of themselves. When they decide to do something else, it's just, that night I probably won't sleep quite as well.
Right.
There's different aspects of it with coaching that can certainly be a challenge. But I have to say, my wife, I don't know. Maybe our relationship is so strong because I'm not around that much. But I mean, she's a trooper too. It'll be interesting as Bobby, my son is going to be a senior this year. So the last few years, it's been real easy for her to be really invested in what we got going on here. Maybe a little bit different after this season to see if she's going to maybe be as excited about me putting all that time in. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
It seems to me like you get to do everything but actually coach football. I mean, it's you're basically a CEO of a company.
Yeah, that pretty much describes it, to be honest with you. If I feel like if you want to do it the right way, and I sometimes I get some heat from some of the other coaches that are coaching at North because they have too much time or doing too much and things like that. And I said, this is the only way I know how to do it. I mean, this is who I am, and I'm not going to change and do something different. And I'm not in this for myself. I mean, you don't do this job because, my personal accolades or things like that. Mm-hmm. I just want to make difference in kids' lives. I mean, that's really what I want to do. So, but I do hang on to that defensive coordinator job because I absolutely love it. I know you mentioned Pat Schwanke before. Tosh, he does my part of my film breakdown for me.
Yep. I know.
Because he's still in his blood and he loves doing it. And, he doesn't,
Yep.
I think he babysits his grandkids, so he doesn't quite want to have the commitment to be doing that, but having him, help break stuff down and things that makes it a little bit easier for me. My Sundays aren't quite as long out breaking out film because I trust him. First of all, he's really good. Second of all, it just allows me to do the job and something that I love. And because I love coaching defense, I absolutely love it. So I don't, maybe that's just, I got some really good coaches and probably could give up and they would do a nice job for us. But at the same time, when you talk about all that CEO stuff, there's stuff I wish I didn't have to do that I really could do without, but wanting to do it right, you hang on to it because you want it to get it done right and make sure your kids have the best opportunities possible. But there's part of me whenever I want to walk away from this that maybe I just want to be like just that defensive coordinator, or just be that defensive coach or something like that, where I don't have to do all the CEO stuff because that does wear on you a little bit. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I would imagine. And then the game is just ever changing. Do you have any thoughts on how long you want to do this, or you still feeling good?
Yeah. Well, everyone's telling me that this is my last year. I think people just assume because my son is graduating this year that must be it. Or maybe they just want me out. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to send me a message. But I don't have any plans to stop doing it. I really don't. I technically have 4 more years of teaching that I would probably be comfortable going at 57. I think maybe I'll stay till 58. I'm doing it for a long time. So there is a next chapter for me. I don't really know what that is. My wife's a couple years younger than me. So she's still going to be working a couple years. So if I'm, sitting at home, not doing anything, that might not sit real well with her either.
Sure.
But a lot of it is, I love my staff. The guys that I'm working with, that those guys are staying around. That's part of it. When you have football when there's so many different components to it, when you have a really good staff. And the thing is, I got some really good young guys too, that I really enjoy. They make me feel a little bit younger myself. So,
sure.
Working with them, but maybe one of those guys want to take it over. Maybe it's their time, to put that hat on. It's not about me. If there's someone that I feel like is ready to do it and wants to put the time in, maybe it's my time to step aside. So all those things kind of go into the thought process. And I want North to be strong. I want Appleton North. I take great pride in being an Appleton boy and, basically working at a school a mile away from the farm that I grew up on and wanting to keep, it's getting tougher and tougher with these multi-city schools. I think we're the only school, that multi-city high school that's been in the playoffs for more than like 3 years in a row or something like that. And I don't know what we're on for how many years we've been in the playoffs, but that's harder for a multi-city school than it is. But again, I'm not gonna use that as an excuse. I mean, that's just a waste of time. I mean, it's just want to do everything. So when I'm done, though, I want to see that continue to move. And we just, the referendum was great. We're getting a new athletic workout center and stuff, so that'll help us. And we're getting Sandy Slope Elementary School over there, and now the Thriver property is going to be developed, so we'll have some nice families moving in on the north side. So we got some positive stuff going over there, and you search for as much as you possibly can, because in public education they're going to attack you as much as they possibly can. So try to find as much positives and keep moving forward and do the best you can for your kids.
We mentioned the Chargers program and starting that up. My son played against them. He played with the Saints program. And came through in 6th, 7th, and 8th. You guys have had great numbers with the Chargers program, and how does that translate to your numbers at the high school level right now?
Well, it's huge. I mean, it's huge. Like we have last year, our freshman group, which was always a big group, but I think we had 55 for our freshman team. And those, you're going to have smaller classes. So your goal is to get as many as you possibly can out. And you have no idea who, as a 7th grader in that class, is going to be develop into an excellent football player. You can kind of see who the kid is, the work ethic they have. There's good opportunities there. But the more you have involved, the stronger that culture is. Develop that positive leadership there. You want to get as many as you possibly can to kind of move through that system. And so they hit the ground running already when they're freshmen. You are going to lose some. I mean, football is not for everybody. And there's a lot of good opportunities at the high school. So there's some things that maybe they want to be in the band. I mean, they got a nice program at North. So if that's that route they want to do, as long as they're going into doing something, I'm always good with it. So if you lose, I always say you're going to lose 10 kids normally from freshman to sophomore year. And I think this year it looks like we're going to lose 8 out of that 55 group. So that's pretty good numbers. And so if you can have them already at the Chargers, especially where right now there's so many other opportunities for the kids at the lower levels too. So to get them just to have a good experience with that youth football program, so they're more than likely to want to stick with it once they get to high school. And I'm not going to lie, I think football is still the toughest sport out there. I mean, what we ask them to do, the grind of it, Joe, your son went through it. I mean, we ask a lot from those boys, and when they get done, I mean, they're a different person because of it, whether they're an all-state player or they were, a part-timer. Who they are as a person is what you're really proud of, because I think they're ready to go on and do some really good things. And I mean, today's world, like my son, my chores for him is to bring the garbage out on Tuesdays. I mean, that's really about it. I mean, I think about the chores I had to do on the farm when I was a kid. I mean, I knew how to work because that's what I did. So to teach those kids what it is, to what work really looks like, where it's every day and you're grinding, it's not easy, it's not fun, but yet you're seeing some positive results because of this time and that effort you're putting in. That is so valuable. And that's why getting to stick with it. Like, I mean, there's a lot of kids right now that I don't know where they're ever going to fit in football players, but watching them develop, seeing them being happy, being confident, enjoy being with their friend group, that's really just positive in itself. I mean, that's what gets you excited to go in there all the time.
That's a life skill. As a dad, I've always said, and as a parent, I want the coaches to teach that, because you're going to use that skill your whole life. Now, you're only going to play football for a few years, and it's going to be great, but you take that life skill forever and apply it in a lot of different situations.
100%.
I wanted to touch when you're playing in high school, you're learning the game of football, but you're also going home and doing the chores at night or doing them early in the morning before you even go to school, right? I mean, you're legit living the farm life and trying to learn football.
Yeah. Football is kind of a break, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I got out of milking when I got to go to football practice. It was like in heaven. I mean, it definitely was a different world. I mean, those were like, Kurt got to play baseball in the summer when he was younger. I'm not really sure how he pulled that off, but and my brother Doug did as well. But the rest of us never could play any other sports and things. But, it's like anything else. That's what I knew. Like, I didn't there's at times when kids were going to just go home or do something, and I'd be, kind of bitter. I'm like, can't I ever go just hang out with my friends after school or do something like that? But at the same time, it's what I did it my entire life. I mean, Kurt and I actually were getting up when we were in second grade before we had to go into school. We'd milk the cows and do that first, and then go in, quick shower, grab a bite to eat, get on the bus, and then we go there. I remember Sister Cyril Marie yelling at me because I couldn't keep my eyes open. I'm like, what do you expect me? I mean, I was up at 5 o'clock this morning. I'm not trying to be a bad kid, but I can't keep my eyes open.
Right.
But again, you learn how to work through that. And I mean, as much as I was kind of bitter about some of that, lifestyle that I had to live on the farm, that I wouldn't change anything. I mean, I'm super close with my family because of it. And I don't even think I was that close with my family when I was in high school. I was, I thought I was better than I really was and had a chip on my shoulder and, the always fighting and being competitive. I mean, Kurt and I literally fought every single day of our lives, like literally physically fought, I swear, every single day of our lives. And now we're best friends. I mean, it's kind of a weird deal how that all shakes out, but, probably did, you're, a teenager is how you are. You don't understand anything, but you think you know everything.
Absolutely.
But that from that, like I said, sports to me was the great escape. And I'll be honest with you, when I started to have success, it changed my life. I mean, it absolutely changed my life because my confidence grew like you wouldn't believe. And suddenly I thought I could do more than I ever believed I could do before. And I'm doing what I'm doing today simply because of that. I mean, I would have got hurt that first game. Who knows what route I would have taken? I probably would have become an electrician and probably actually made good money. But I probably wouldn't be doing what I love to do. So I guess, everything happens for a reason. I'm just fortunate. And that's really the reason I coach is I just want to share that same experience. And hopefully as many kids can see themselves differently and see themselves in a positive way like they didn't before because of the experience that they had.
I don't even know if you actually answered this. How did you actually get into coaching? I know you said initially it never crossed your mind, but how did you become a coach?
Yeah, great question. Really, I don't know exactly what went off in my mind, but I really, I had so much fun coaching and I felt so good about doing it. So I went to UW-Oshkosh. I had some offers from like Northern Michigan and things, but being a farm boy, I didn't want to go very far away. So I decided to go to UW-Oshkosh. And my girlfriend was going there at the time, so I'm like, oh, go with my girlfriend, whatever. And so we go there and the football thing just was so different. I mean, it was so different and I didn't care for it. I ended up having this kind of hip issue when I was there too, that I had the whole time, but suddenly, I don't know if it was just me not really wanting to be there. I just didn't want to do that. So I actually was commuting my sophomore year. Some of you guys probably know that from Appleton. And I needed to get my stuff together. And so I'm like, okay, I need to do something positive if I'm going to stay in school and do this. So I actually called Paul Egan and I said, hey, Paul, I'm not playing football in college anymore. So I'd like to come back and coach. And he never even hesitated. He was like, I got a job for you. You're going to be working on the JVs. Joe Krieger at that time was finishing up at Lawrence. Mm-hmm. So we kind of came in together. So it was Ed Smerzak. Joe and I ran the JVs, but I would still coach on the varsity. And honestly, I didn't know anything. I mean, I really didn't. I mean, enough to fool people and make them think like I did. And then it just started to learn. I mean, I just did as much as I could to learn more about the game and my first 4 years as one of the JV coaches, we went 9-0, 8-1, 8-1, 9-0. I mean, we just had stud teams and it wasn't anything about me, honestly. Right. But that just fueled me and our varsity went to 3 state championships in a row. And I'm like, this isn't even that hard. I mean, it's been how many years later? Exactly. And that's how, and I'll be truthful. I had no aspiration to be a head coach. Didn't see myself as being capable to do that. Didn't have the confidence in myself to do that. And was working with Mike Weinberg when we moved to North. And I was offered to be the defense coordinator at Appleton West and stay there with Chris Heller and Joe Krieger. Joe was going to be the offensive coordinator. And honestly, the only reason I went there is because my brother Doug, who the high school is built right by our farm, was playing for North. I just really couldn't see myself coaching against, because I was really close friends with Joe and Chris, and that would have been really comfortable for me. And I was like, well, Paul's going to be out at North too. And I wasn't that close with Mike Weinberg, so to speak. But I was like, I don't really want to coach against my brother. And I still have stuff to learn too as I'm developing here, and felt like that was the best opportunity. So I went there and they had me doing everything. I coached offensive line. I was the special teams varsity coordinator right from the start, coached defensive backs, which I never had coached or played. So it was a great learning experience for me. And then I started to think, you know what, maybe I'm more than just an assistant coach. There was things that were being done that I didn't agree with. And the work ethic for me was like, I will outwork anybody so I can do this and just continue to grow as a football, coach and a mind. And that's kind of where it went. So after Mike stepped down, Paul and I were the two guys that applied for the job, and I lost out to Paul. I mean, seriously, but
the hell.
It's a funny story about that though. So Paul had told me he's going to only coach, I don't remember how many years it was, just a couple years. And he said, and then, it'll be yours. And so he's like, I want you to be the defensive coordinator. I want you to run the weight room. And I literally did all of it. I mean, I literally did everything. And it was a great learning experience for me. But as I'm getting older at this point, which, I'd love to go back to that age, but I'm like 35 and I'm like, you know what, I'm starting to get the itch to be this head coach. But is Paul going to just continue to do this? Because he's got a pretty good deal right now, because I'm doing all the junky work that you really don't want to do, but
right.
It needs to be done. And I loved it. Again, it was great for me. So the De Pere job opened. And so I went up and applied for the De Pere job. And then I was offered the De Pere job. And I said, Paul, where are you at? Because I got to make a decision right now. I'm either going to head up and coach De Pere, or he goes, I'm turning in my resignation. This is your job. That's so I don't necessarily want to say that I forced Paul out, so to speak.
Right.
But that was kind of how it happened. And so, but he coached that year. So that was that spring. And so then it was funny, because then the only other coach that applied for the North job was Brent Ingen at the time.
Okay.
And then at West, I don't remember who stepped down, but Brent took the job I think it was Chris Heller. I think Brent took the job at Appleton West. So I had planned on having Paul being part of my staff at North. And he obviously was going to go work with Brent over at West. So he left North. And at the time I was like, oh crap. I mean, this guy is my guy. I mean, he's been my mentor. I lean on him for things. But it honestly was the greatest thing that happened. I mean, I had to stand on my own two legs, and I certainly was capable of doing it. But, you don't always know. You always question. There's always that guy on your shoulder saying, are you good enough to do this?
Right.
But I had to do it. I mean, I had to get my staff together. I had to get everything in place. And, the first year we went to the state semifinals, and, we were 10 points away, and it was 2 turnovers from going to the state championship my first year as head coach. So that things just really worked out. He had some good players there, made you look really smart. And things just kind of took off from there. And fortunately for me, Brent had decided to step down after 8 years or so at West. So I met Paul over at the Golden Corral at the time.
Sure.
And I said, just kind of like, all right, where are you at? And Paul was like, oh, I don't know, the new coach at West, I'm going to talk with him. I said, all right, here's the deal. And we have a lot of guys at North that played for him and were West guys. So he obviously had good relationships with everyone. And I said, here's the deal. Whatever happens at West, if you're staying there, that's great. Just let me know. But I said, you always have a home with us. You have a spot with us. I said, you want to continue coaching? Maybe this is your time to get out. He goes, no. He goes, I'm never done coaching. So I think Paul's going to be there as long as he can be. So it was nice to be able to have the last, 7 or 8 years with Paul again on the sidelines, and having a Hall of Fame coach as your JV offensive line coach isn't a bad deal. And he's still in the weight room every day.
Yeah.
I mean, he does workouts. I mean, for a dude that's 82, 83 years, whatever he is, I'm amazed. I hope I have half his energy and have his intellect yet at that age. But it was, it kind of comes full circle. But obviously he's getting up there in age. So when some of those guys decide to move on or whatever, that's where things all have to start making some decisions at that point.
Sure. No, he's definitely an inspiration, man. I would love to be like that at 82. It'd be everything for sure.
I wish I was that way at 53, for goodness sakes.
Yeah,
I mean,
no doubt.
his motor just does not stop.
Oh, no doubt.
So impressive. And Marcia's still going pretty good too. I mean, it's amazing, those two.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Absolutely. A Friday night, Friday Night Lights. I mean, that's a real feeling. That's a real thing. I mean, what's your Friday night like? Do you get the butterflies? I mean, are you just there's just nothing better than Friday night, right?
There's nothing better. It's part of my weight control system, because whenever my stomach gets all rattled up already early in the morning, and that never was really the reason I do it, but there's certainly something special about Friday nights. I mean, I don't know if there's any, we're playing our games Thursday night until school starts. And part of that is trying to extend the family time into the summer and stuff. And I do like it.
Sure.
But it's funny. I was talking to Wes today, and Wes King, the boy that's at Wyoming. And, I was saying, trying to remember, I said, one of the kids he played with is no longer playing at the college level. He was at Whitewater. And he goes, well, I understand that, because it's still different. There's nothing like playing on Friday nights for high school football. And this guy's playing, on ABC, nationally televised football game at the highest college level you can play at. And he's still saying that it's still nothing like playing on a Friday night. And that's true. It's, like we have some of our best baseball player, Wilson Zuck, great player for us a couple of years ago. He still says he was a great baseball player and did all the club stuff. And he goes, but I lived for Friday night football. That was still the greatest experience that I had. So it's unique. And, there's that song by, Kenny Chesney, Boys of Fall, and they have that Sean Payton. I don't know if you ever saw that thing. He talks about it. You're going to have other times like this, when you have your first child and you get married, but there's only so many Friday night football nights that you'll have.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of sums it up. And as much as I'm nostalgic and I look back at my high school and what I want the high school to be for kids today, football is probably the one area that we still have that, it's still, you can get at some moments. You have a good basketball team. I think they still can get that thing going in your school. Maybe those small towns a little bit more when there's not as much going on, but you look at those bigger towns, there's just so many things going on all the time that there just never seems to be that excitement focus on those high school sports, with the exception of football. I mean, football is just one where the kids still keep coming back and they still pack the stadiums. I mean, the visitor sections at the away games are going to be packed full. It's really cool. And so I like seeing that, and I take great pride in that because I think it's good for your communities.
100% agree. It's probably going to be the one thing I miss from officiating is just the feeling of a Friday night when those stands are packed and you got that haze and the lights and, everybody's sweating and it's just a good old football game. I mean, there is really no better feeling than that.
No, it's just pure. It's just, it's you watching this NIL stuff go in the transfer portal at that next level. Talk about NIL and, in Wisconsin too, like taking away some of the purity and just the play, like just the romance of the high school athlete and the high school experience. You don't want to see that go away, so maybe I'm just hanging on to it, but at the same time, for us older guys, I mean, that's really what that high school experience was all about. All those experiences of being with your friends and celebrating those. I mean, I still remember when I was a sophomore going to the varsity football games and sitting in the stands. If one of my kids told me he wasn't playing this year just because he wants to experience what it's like to be in the stands. And I'm like, well, if that's your motivation, go for it, bud. But it's still better being on the field playing. I can tell you that much.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, I kind of get what he's saying, but you're right. Nothing beats being on the field.
Right.
You tie in the facilities too. I mean, that's one thing that blows my mind. And you talked about it. I think you're right. Appleton's behind the eight ball a little bit, right? Because there's three schools. You kind of have to do it in threes. But you see some of these facilities, the indoor facilities, the new fields, the LED lights. Now they blink and change colors, and the sound systems and scoreboards. I mean, it's like small college, really, even big time college in some of these stadiums.
Well, I was over at Neenah, and they're new. I mean, first of all, they put the scoreboard right behind the visitors' team, and I swear I've never been at a rave, but I'm pretty sure that's what it feels like with the flashing lights and stuff going on behind, and the music that's just cranking. Can't see the score. I mean, it's definitely changed from Pickett Field over at Appleton East, where we play our games. I mean, it was so much simpler and more pure, I guess, at that time, and it's sports is an entertainment business. So, I mean, I like to try to keep up with that as much as possible. I mean, I think like at North, we got a pretty good, I even like Appleton East. I think they got a good setting too. When you have their football games, everywhere you go, they kind of have their own niche. But that's what makes them unique and special and makes it really a cool experience to go to, not just for the parents or the kids are playing, but families. I mean, they go out there. I mean, And when I first became head coach, I said, my goal is I want to see all these families walking down Ashbury, just going to the stadium on Friday night, to come in and watch a game. What a good, pure, just healthy experience, having fun. We always do the fireworks at homecoming, and you hear families talking about that experience. We actually got a parade now. I mean, we didn't have a parade at North for our homecoming. Now we got that just because invite the elementary schools, get them to be part of that experience, looking at how awesome high school is going to be and you being part of that. How active are you going to be, get involved in it? But when you see it when you're young, you get excited about it, right? So if you don't have any experience, you don't even know what you're missing. So when you get there, it's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing anyway. But if you see it, now that's something I want to get involved in. So you grow that school spirit, get them excited about being involved in something that's healthy. That's the way to put it, because there's other things out there that are not so healthy that you can be involved in. So it's a bigger picture than just the game that goes on. That's what I care about, obviously the game, but it is still that experience for that community to have something that they get excited about and they can brag to other people about being part of it. And that's good for your school. And football always starts the school year, so you got a good football team. It just makes your school year seem a little bit better, to be honest with you.
How do you feel about? I mean, at least a third of the season's done before you even start school. I mean, that's kind of changed in the last couple of years.
Well, the best thing about it for me, honestly, I hate the start of school year. Tosh, you might feel the same way. I literally hate it when I was a student. I hated those first couple of weeks of school, but I love football. So I got to have one to have the other. So it balances out for me. So I don't hate the start of school as much because I got football going on. First of all, it keeps me distracted and something that I love. But I do think that, for incoming freshman boys, use that for example, they're nervous as can be. Well, shoot, they've already had 3 weeks of activity going on. We have freshman buddies. So, we got some of the older upperclassmen that are now befriended them and make them feel more comfortable. So you just have, let's say, 50 kids that are starting the school year, walking the hallway. They have other friends and stuff. It just makes them more comfortable, makes it feel more welcoming. So you start the school off in a more positive way, which is a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
No, that makes sense. Well, Rob, I know we're way over what I told you would be going, and I feel like we still have a million more things to talk about. So that just tells us we'll have to have you on.
That sounds good. I do talk a lot, and this is more my environment. I'm not like necessarily in a big crowd kind of view, but a couple guys talking about sports and stuff that mean a lot to me. I could probably talk all night, to be honest with you.
That's kind of what we're after with the Newsa-Cast, is just these kind of conversations and just, like you said, we're all getting older, right? We have a bunch of experiences, and we're just, not that we're telling anybody what to do, but it's just we can share our experiences and I don't know if it clicks with people. It's always good, right, to just hear other people's perspectives on things.
No, I think, we're speaking from the heart. We're talking about things that we care about. We're not trying to push anything down anybody's throats. But there's a lot to learn, I think, when you listen to people who've been through things, have experiences. And in today's world, people don't always do that. They want to figure out everything on their own. And so I think the more positive information and great experiences we can share that maybe can enlighten some people, that's a good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And people really don't have, being a head coach is hard. The people just have no idea. It's so easy to criticize, and we fought it as officials as well. People think it's easy to be an official. It's not. And
no.
if you're going to criticize,
I'll say every year that I get older and do this longer, and I've been around more people criticize you.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. It's like more people just kind of want to throw arrows at you for whatever reason. And I'm literally the same dude I was when I started. I'm in this because I love kids and I want to see them become the best version of themselves. No other ulterior motive. Do I do a lot of stuff to try to give our kids great opportunities? Yep. But for what? It's because you care about kids. That's it.
Right.
And sometimes they like to read more into it. Sometimes I'll be opinionated. I'm not going to lie. I think that stuff's going wrong and it's going in the direction I don't think is positive for kids. You got to say it, but that's because I believe in it. So the heart's always in the right place, but some guys will judge when you do that kind of stuff, but you got to be who you are.
Yeah, you really do, and I think at the end of the day, right? Maybe it's easier when you get older to do this. Is just basically just F you to those people.
Right? I certainly don't have the patience I had when I was younger, and not that I think I know anymore, but I think I'm more confident in saying what I believe in maybe than when I was younger.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been around the sun a few times. We know what we're talking about. But,
absolutely.
Well, with that said, I know it's getting past our bedtime here, so we should probably hit end record. But Rob, thank you for being on. I love this conversation. I feel like we need to have another one maybe after the football season or something and catch up.
Hey, I'm always up to it. Keeps me out of my wife's hair, so she'd be happy about it too.
Excellent. We're public service.
It's great catching up, guys.
All right, Tosh, we have come to a Red Smith Banquet throwback segment where, we throw it back to the Red Smith Banquet. That's why we started this whole podcast to begin with. So a little reminiscing. And this week, you get a snippet of Jack Bennett. Of course, the Bennett family, legendary Dick Bennett, Tony Bennett. But Jack has a great story. You're not going to want to miss it, Tosh. You get a clip here, and then every Sunday you get the excuse me, I can't talk. Every Sunday you get the full version of a throwback, and we've got quite a library built up. So yeah, enjoy some of that, right, Tosh?
Yeah, absolutely. And that throwback can be found on the YouTube channel.
You got that, the Newsa-Cast YouTube channel. Enjoy Jack Bennett at the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet.
Red Smith Sports Awards Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join in welcoming the 2007 Red Smith Nice Guy Award winner, Jack Bennett.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, you take it. Thank you. Thank you. Bill, I want to know, does he pay you any more than he pays me when we do those banquets? And I get about 1,000. Is that? I am a little upset. You've ruined my image, Nice Guy Award. Obviously, you did not talk to any officials. Obviously. Probably didn't talk to a lot of parents either. And some player matter. And I know you didn't talk to my wife on every day of the week. But this year's award was tough. And I think the finalists is what made it so special. The finalists, Barry Bonds, Dennis Rodman, John McEnroe, Randy Moss. Then the final three, myself included, Mike Tyson, and I just edged out Terrell Owens. I always ask this, by the way. Do we have anybody who was a point grad here or sent their kids to UW Steve? Oh, good. Yeah. How about, Madison, UW Madison? Marquette? Lawrence, Ripon, the private schools? Good. Anybody go to, Minnesota schools or Iowa? All right, I will speak real slowly for you people. You got it tough enough in Minnesota. You got to root for those darn Vikings. Let me just share a couple of thoughts with you. The nice guy. I got to try to be nice. I got to try. The naturally nice person in our family is my wife. It comes real easy for her. I fail at it often. And I think when I fail at it, it comes down to this simple fact. When I'm doing things for this world, for my own ambition, my own satisfaction in this world, I fail. But when I do it for the angels of a better nature, as Abraham Lincoln used to talk, then I feel good. I just don't do it enough. And when I got this award, some guilt came over me, to be honest with you. You know, I'm just thinking, what about all the times I said harsh things? See, I think you can be tough as a coach. You've got to be tough as a coach. But you must have compassion. The best coaches I've ever been around had both, whether it was the Dean Smiths or the Vince Lombardis, just observing them. And I have a pretty famous brother. Sometimes that was a burden. Sometimes it was. But it was a blessing as well. And I learned a great deal. You see, in my life, there is kind of a North Star that guides me. I would hope all of you have that North Star, have some kind of guiding principles that leads you, navigates you through life. And for me, the North Star came down to two areas, because I was into coaching. One, it was about the way to coach. You see, I do believe basketball can be played many different ways. Many different ways. But I also believe there is a right way to play the game. And sometimes it gets criticized. I do not really know what Bennett ball is. I hear it a lot. And sometimes it's said in a derogatory term. It's slow. It's half-court, grind-em-out basketball. You know what? Everybody who's ever been connected with my brother doesn't play the game exactly that way. Tony right now is moving the ball a little bit, but he's kept that defense. They take care of the ball. You don't have to apologize for that. We played that way. We even played some zone. I had to go to confession every time we did it. I'm proud to say that the guy who took over for me, Bob Semling, he's got the pointers #1 in the nation. So much for my big impact at Stevens Point. It's about playing the game and teaching your kids the right stuff. I don't think it is wrong to not throw the ball away frivolously. I think it's a great way to play the game, to get good shots, to not give up silly offensive rebounds to your team. You see, more teams beat themselves than ever win games with great plays. And that may sound a little negative to you, but you watch those games. You watch Coach Rafter. He's still coach to me, all right? And watch how many mistakes are made down the stretch. If you can get a team to play tough together, play with some passion, you've got something going. And I love players who believe in humility. They know who they are. They know what their strengths and weaknesses are. I love players with passion. I cannot stand lukewarm players. They get people fired. They show promise, and then they go back into their cocoon. Give me a player that runs hot, and I can calm him down. Give me a player that runs cold, and I'll turn the fire up on him. But don't give me a lukewarm player. I want somebody who loves the game. Because that leads to the third part, perseverance. Victory doesn't go to the most talented often, the best jumpers, the best athletes. It goes to people who simply won't quit. They get knocked down, they get up. They figure out ways to be resilient. They learn from losses instead of blaming everybody else. And it's hard. It is more fun to win. Of course it is. But perseverance and resiliency is what wins championships. And then finally, give me players who have courage. courage under fire, courage to do the right thing, the tough thing when the pressure is on. And surround me with people who have the courage to listen to others and to admit when somebody else has a good idea. You know those 5 most difficult words in the English language to say. We don't say it to our wives, to our kids don't say it to us. The 5 toughest words: I'm sorry, I was wrong. And courageous people have that ability. They really do. James Michener said it best. No matter what you accomplish in life, no matter what you do, for this is the journey that all men must make, to find themselves. And if we fail at this, it does not matter what else we may find. Mike Reese, committee, this has been one of the biggest honors of my life to be here. When I looked at those names of the other nice guys, I do not deserve to be up here. But I'm not going to give the cup away. God bless.
Well, all right, Tosh, it was another great throwback. Jack Bennett was just a classic throwback. Catch that every Sunday. Get the full episode, full video version of that. Well, Tosh, we're coming to an end of another Newsa-Cast, but we can't leave this show without a little, it's forgotten and I'm never forgetting. So what's forgotten in your world, Tosh?
Well, we don't get a lot of this. In Wisconsin, we have some pretty nice weather. That's why people live in Wisconsin, right? We have the 4 seasons. But when we get some of these days with the humidity that feels like it's Florida and tropical, I'm not a huge humidity guy. I like the drier weather, so I want to forget the humidity. Even though it doesn't happen that often, when it does, it really kicks you in the pants. So
does wonders to your hair, Tosh. Look at this. I mean,
yeah, me too, right?
No, I know what you mean. It's weird. Oddly, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the older I get, the more accepting I am of the heat. It feels a little bit better. I'm not a huge fan, especially at night when you're trying to sleep. When it's just hot and muggy, but I'm a little more tolerable of it, I guess, the older I get.
Well, I see Florida in your future then.
I know. I think about that, Tosh. Maybe. Got to put in a little more time up north, though, yet.
Yeah, probably, right? All right, Joe, what do you want to forget?
Well, Tosh, I'm glad I'm forgetting this. As most of you know, I'm a biker. I bike everywhere. And one of my daily bike trip, I'm on the College Avenue Bridge at like 4:30 a.m. And the other day I was biking. I kind of had the sense that there was a car coming up on me. And there was it's pretty distinct bike lanes on College Avenue Bridge, and this car was like over the white line into the bike lane, like right next to me. And I'm like, wow, that's weird, and kind of drove off, and we're coming up to the roundabout, and this guy did not take the roundabout very well. He 2 wheels were way up on the curb, so he was clearly a drunk driver. And I guess I'm forgetting that. I think I had a close call, Tosh, and didn't quite realize that. So I'm glad I'm going to forget that.
Yeah, that's scary. Wow. Yeah. Hey, watch out for the bikers. Come on.
Yeah. It made me think I got to get a rear view mirror either on my handlebar or my helmet. I need to see what's coming behind me, I think.
There you
All
go.
right, Tosh. Well, let's get on to something good. And that's what are you never forgetting?
Well, this past weekend we were down in the Racine area. And as everybody knows in Wisconsin, summer is music season, but one of the cool things about Milwaukee is just all of the music, and the biggest music festival in the world is going on right now, and that's Summerfest.
Yeah.
And Summerfest is a blast. If we didn't have the bad weather, I think Ethan and I may have tried to go down to Summerfest for a little bit on that Friday night. I should say Saturday night. But Summerfest, there was like 4 or 5 different little festivals going on in Milwaukee as well that all had music at. So summer music, Summerfest, whether it's Paperfest, whether it's any little town that has music going on, summer music is Absolutely amazing.
Oh, 100% agree. Tosh, you and I have had some epic times at Summerfest back in the 90s. Remember seeing the Goo Goo Dolls like early on,
Right.
like year 1 or 2 for them? And I remember one year Pearl Jam, and somebody in our group made Janet Jackson cry. I mean, there was, yeah, I mean, Van Halen and Jimmy Buffett, so many. I don't know if they were all Summerfest, but they all played Summerfest grounds, and it was, boy, yeah, you're right. There's nothing like a summer music, outdoor music. There's a ton of it coming up in Appleton. You know, every week.
Absolutely.
There's some, we should, right? Shout out. This is Thursday, tomorrow night, Friday night at Riverside. Digstown is playing our house
Absolutely.
band, right? The Newsa-Cast band. So there you go, local live music. So I love it, Tosh.
There you go. Joe, what are you never forgetting?
Well, Tosh, I think I'm a petty guy. If we're getting real, I've never had a pedicure until just a couple of hours ago, and God dang, Tosh, I'm a petty guy. Holy cow, does that feel good? I mean, the old hot stone on the calf and the shins, and the whatever goes in the water, and the clipping of the nail. I have terrible, toenails. Not that anybody needs to know that, but man,
It's like Dumb and Dumber.
Power. They did not break out the power tools, thank God. I did think about that going in, but we were good. But yeah, man, that was really, really nice, Tosh, and I don't ever want to forget that feeling. And I might be a petty guy, not sure. Yeah,
Some people love it. Some people think it tickles. Some people aren't for it. But hey, everybody has their own preference, right?
Yeah, the tickle is real. I have to focus not to laugh. I can see where you can let go and laugh. But well, anyway, Tosh, that's another great episode. It is always a hoot to do this with you. And till next week, we'll see you, folks.
Thank you for listening to another great episode of the Newsa-Cast. We'd really appreciate it if you hit up our social pages, subscribe, like, follow, and don't be afraid to engage. Head over to our YouTube channel to get exclusive content like the full interviews and speeches from the past Red Smith banquets.
A huge thank you to Digstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify.